Good afternoon. I am Dr. Nsenga Burton, and I'd like to welcome you to the Burton Wires live stream. Today, we are going to be talking with two of my favorite people from the African American Film Critics Association, founder Gil Robertson and media critic Ronda Penrice. Welcome. Before we get started, I hear something in the background. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to keep going. But before we get started, I want to tell you all a little bit about Gil and then a little bit about Rhonda, and we're going to go. Gil, a thought leader, entertainment journalist, author, and change agent. He's the author of numerous books, has written for every publication under the sun, whether it's the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, a number of places. And he is a founder of the African American Film Critics Association, which is the largest association of Black film critics in the world, the country, in the world. And then, of course, we have Ronda Racha Penrice, who is amazing. She's a Columbia University graduate. She's covered film and TV with a Black lens nationally and globally for over 20 years. Her work has appeared everywhere. You've seen her byline. I knew Rhonda's byline before I had a byline. You've seen her byline everywhere. Rat Pages. We worked at Rat Pages together. Essence, Upscale, Ebony, Uptown, The Root, Daily Beast, NBC Black. You name it, she has written for it. She's also an author. She is the author of African American History for Dummies. So if you don't know your history, do not come into the chats. And she's currently working on a book, a collaborative book, edited volume on the television show The Wire. Please welcome Ronda Penrice. So today we are, I hear a lot of feedback. That's not me, is it? Okay. I'm hearing feedback from somewhere, but we're going to keep moving. All right. So if Norman, can we just mute for a second? Okay, maybe my producer's not here. But all right, so before we start, we're supposed to be talking about diversity in Hollywood today. But what I really want to do is to start off really talking about this George Floyd situation. Because I feel like as Black people, we absolutely cannot just talk about media and African American images and not start off talking about George Floyd. First, let me know your thoughts, especially with films like Judas, Black Messiah and Judas and what have you. When we talk about some of the films that are up for grabs this year in terms of Oscar nominations, some that have won your AAFCA awards, and we're going to talk about your awards a little bit later in the show. Can you tell us, what does it mean to have this type of verdict, a guilty verdict, in the midst of this kind of sea of social change that's happening and that is actually being reflected in our pop culture, particularly in Black film? Well, Gil, let's start with you.
Well, actually, I'd like to hear what Rhonda has to say first. I'm sure it'll be quite a bit.
Well, I think that, for so long, and what's been reflected even in our entertainment is that even when the obvious occurs, that, accountability and justice has been, has not come. So for this to happen, it's kind of not been the narrative. So hopefully it opens up new possibilities about the stories that we can tell and be realistic going forward. So I think that I know that it'll have a profound effect, because already in the last few years, as we've seen through Trump's presidency, we've seen a great reflection of more protesting. There is a show on Freeform called Good Trouble, which has really dove into this movement. You even have shows like The Bold Type and stuff like that. So we're definitely going to see that. And then in this round, with a film like Judas and the Black Messiah, hopefully that opens up new territory to tell stories, narratives that are truth-based with a new lens, I should say.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think of yesterday's verdicts, and how much change is it going to have? I think it's kind of, for me, it's too early to tell. Let's get past sentencing. I mean, on the heels of that, you know, reports went out about a young 15-year-old who was shot and killed in Columbus. And so, I mean, we've had one victory against so many, other tragedies. And while I certainly think that the film and TV communities will create stories that speak to those experiences, I just don't know what the long-term impact will be, because I mean, you know, the battle still goes on. We're still out here fighting a war, with regards to the safety and the protection and the value of Black bodies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I think Gil makes a good point, and for me, I don't see it as an ending point. I see it as a continuation point, and that this verdict has given people a glimmer of hope that we're finally getting down to what the real roots of the problem are, and we're seeing that criminal justice reform cannot be something you put on the back burner. It has to happen now, and it's a priority. Like, there are different in our history, the types of movements that we have fought, we have yet to really tackle the criminal justice system. And it is the beast that is before us. And I think that this gives us a little bit more, wind beneath our sail to keep on going.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with both of you. I think that what we're learning when we think about Rodney King and how there was video of that beating and nothing happened, right? Nothing of consequence or substance. Latasha Harlins, who was killed, a 15-year-old who was shot in the back of the head, and there's video of that and nothing happened. And this is, of course, back in the early 1990s. And we think all the way up to 2021, even, video of Eric Garner and other folks who, Tatiana Jefferson, who was shot in her home, that body cam footage. We've had
Tamir Rice.
Yeah, Tamir Rice, where nothing has happened, right? To see something happen and to see the use of video, right? And these images, as Gil says, Black bodies, Black people, our full humanity on display, and having our lives taken away from us and our humanity taken away from us. I think it is a win in that sense that, finally someone is paying attention to the video. Finally, we've always had, kind of multiracial coalitions, but not to this degree and the size that they are. We have more people registering to vote and things of that nature in a particular demographic, 18 to 49. But I think that, the verdict definitely speaks to this push for diversity and inclusion that is happening, and the push for it to be something meaningful, because it's always been around, right? People have always been talking about it and allegedly doing something about it. But there's push for measurable outcomes, and Hollywood has not been left out of this conversation, in terms of diversity and inclusion. So can we talk a little bit about, we're going to segue to Hollywood and diversity and inclusion, and some of the challenges that have that African Americans have faced in Hollywood, in front of and behind the screen, and what AAFCA has been doing to address those challenges for nearly, for over almost 2 decades.
Well, like much of everything in society, it comes down to access and resources. And the Black community, Black Hollywood, is still lacking in both of those areas. And so while there certainly have been, major strides made by, a growing number of people, professionals who operate and creatives, within that space, we still have a long, long way to go, in terms of the variety, the depth of story that mirror the Black experience. We still aren't seeing the type of diversity that I'd like to see personally stories that actually mirror our lives. Too many stories that are in that pipeline in Hollywood are still wrapped around one or two particular, storylines or themes. And so, but those are the films that get funded. Those are the films that, the powers that be decide are worthy to receive a platform. Um, so, again, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer today, because I realize what my earlier comment was, but things are certainly getting better. But, we have to come together more. We've got to act as a unit more, and we've got to be willing to invest in ourselves and in each other in order for us to really win.
Right.
And
Rhonda?
I should add, I'm a member of AAFCA and a founding member, not a founder, but a founding member. And one of the things that, because AAFCA functions very differently than other critics groups, because AAFCA, because of the nature of what our representation in film and TV entails, is an advocacy group as well. So one of the things that Gil has done is really worked hard to form coalitions. So prior to what happened in Atlanta with the, unfortunately, the violence against the Asian community, I mean, Gil has worked really, really hard in building coalitions with the Asian community, with the Latino community, partnering with women's organizations and various things, because it's not something that we alone can tackle. And together our voices are much stronger. And so as AAFCA and other groups have been raising awareness, we have begun to see some kind of change. And that change is not just from us talking about it, but also, like last year, we saw the historic rise of Black women in positions that they had never occupied before. When you talk about Warner TV, where Channing is, and
MGM, TriStar.
Yeah, just different, just all kinds of different places that, these women have been slowly but surely rising up. And that has an impact as well. So it's just everyone is working on all fronts.
Absolutely. And I think that's what the difficult part is, right? You see so many people doing well, right? Your Ava DuVernays and, the rise, I love to say that the reemergence, because she never went away, but of like Anima Barnett, right? Or folks who have been in this game for a very long time, the Julie Dashes, and folks working as directors and writers and producers. Charles King, getting his roses, getting his shine after all these years of working in the industry, and doing great work all along, but really just getting his moment. So we see all of that happening, but still we hear about and we know about the challenges and the difficulties that people face when getting access to Hollywood, as Gil says, and then being able to succeed in a system that's really not set up for your success and not really used to it. Gil, you raised a really good issue that I want you all to expand upon, because there's been a lot of discussion about trauma porn, trauma films as it relates to African Americans. Hollywood really being focused on funding films that really highlight some very violence towards African Americans, whether it's films that are set during the plantation era, the slavery era, films that like them, the horror genre, particular genre film that really does an interesting job of looking at the everyday macro and microaggressions that Blacks face and showing that as the horror it is. But then also, they've also gotten a lot of pushback because people are like, I don't want to see trauma all the time as it relates to African Americans. I want to see more diverse stories. What's your take on that?
Well, it might surprise you. Much like other communities, the Jewish community in particular, where references in cinema to the Holocaust are ongoing and continuous and plentiful. And I think that those reminders have power to let people know from whence they came and the challenges that they've overcome. And I think it has the potential to have a unifying effect, on those audience members who've been, impacted in that way. I mean, I agree with you that certainly, it would appear that there's, and that's not even an appearance. I mean, it's reality that there needs to be greater balance given to the types of storylines that our stories are wrapped in. But at the same time, I think that I often feel that pockets within our community, within the Black community, tend to want to run away and not confront, some of the painful stories and circumstances that have shaped who we are today, and that those problems and issues will continue to negatively impact us until we confront them head on and overcome them. So, I mean, I get it both ways. I mean, I would love one of the films that came out last year that we were very, very excited about. By we, I mean AAFCA, the members of the African American Film Critics Association, was Sylvie's Love, because it had been such a long time that we hadn't seen a film that really kind of celebrated Black love and just showcased to people just striving to make the best of themselves and their lives and their families. And yeah, we need a lot more of that.
I don't think it's subject matter. I think it's more of execution. And, when you look at the body of work that someone like a Raoul Peck has done, and only now he's getting credit for that. But Raoul Peck is someone who's able to kind of put the indignation where it is supposed to be. And he does it in a way that it enlightens you and uplifts you by informing you of what the truth is. And it doesn't just assault you. So a lot of the problems that we have in people's rejections, because as Gil alludes to, there are going to be people, regardless of how well it's done, they don't want to see it, period. But I think that we can't just turn off the criticism and dismiss it as people not wanting to see it. I think that part of the problem is that so much of the content is filtered through the lens of other. And we also have to, our creatives have to start creating formats that are adapted to what our incidences and circumstances are, instead of trying to put our stories into a narrative format that has not been designed to recognize our humanity in the first place.
Absolutely. This whole issue of audience is one that is very interesting. Who are the stories being written for, right? What stories that are getting greenlit? Who are the audience that they're seeking? And are they really for Black audiences in the first place, in terms of how they're writing it? We have Jim Washington here in ATL who says hello. We also have Rosemarie Holmes, Rose Scott, from A Closer Look on NPR, asking about, what do you all make of Regina King's statement, quote, "The reality is, while we do appreciate the BET Awards and the NAACP Image Awards, unfortunately, a nomination or a win in that space does not actually translate to power in the bigger space." She explained, it's just reality. So with the AAFCA Awards, let's get into it. Like, what is the AAFCA doing? What does an award from AAFCA mean within the industry for these filmmakers and actors and performers?
I disagree with Ms. King. Things mean what we things. Awards have the value that we give to them, and so if they meant something to the talent and to the Black community, then thus they would have power. So the only reason why the Oscars are powerful is because someone said so.
Right.
With the AAFCA Awards in particular, we have worked, very, very hard to, within the industry, to give our program, all of our awards programs, the type of profile where I'm not sure if they translate yet to dollars, how much an agent is able to leverage, their client receiving one, but we're certainly on our way there. Through some of the alliances that we've created. I've been very intentional in understanding that, through some of those relationships, they have the effect of generating value to the recipients, in terms of their ability to navigate and grow and expand the footprint of their career.
And let's be real. I mean, traditionally, historically, I mean, even with our Black actors who have won Oscars, they haven't necessarily translated into work in dollars. So, one of the things people can talk about the value that it has, and maybe it's translated for other people who maybe were already on that trajectory. But we have a lot of Oscar nominees and so forth that have not in the past been able to parlay that into more dollars and more work, and that's just real.
If anything, in some cases, it's had the opposite effect.
Okay, so for example?
Well, I mean, I don't want to, Marissa Tomei, Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yes,
I mean, they're actors after actors after they've reached that pinnacle. I mean, there's no place to go but down.
Marcia Gay Harden. I mean, and definitely when you talk about Margaret Avery, or even for a long time with Louis Gossett Jr. So, it's like a lot of different things. It's not just an award. It's also who your team is. It's what circles you're in. I mean, it's a whole lot of different factors. People like to boil Hollywood down to just one or two things, but there's so much in the mix.
Yeah, and with those examples, I was thinking ageism, right? Because all of them kind of hit 40 and disappeared, which happens to women in the industry quite often, regardless of whether they're Academy Award winning or what have you.
But that's changing too because of the outside world, and I also think because we have so much in social media, it doesn't get enough credit in this regard of people being able to go to the TikToks and Instagrams and so forth and create their own content, or even, having a show like this, because there are other avenues now and they're getting eyes on them that, Hollywood is a money machine. And so, before, if you have nothing to show you differently, you just presume that your way and the money that you're making is all the potential there is. But now all these other outlets are showing, hey, that is not the case.
Right. Rose had added that Gil is a prime example of what Hollywood needs. I've watched him grow AAFCA to what it is today. Bravo, Gil. So when we're thinking, bravo, Gil.
Thank you, Rose.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And I don't say that just because I know Gil, but I work, in full disclosure, I work with Gil on the AAFCA Awards, but also, and Gil knows this and Nsenga knows this, that I wouldn't say it if I didn't truly believe it. But, the kinds of things one of the things that Gil is very insistent on is that Black is not substandard and subpar. So he demands absolute excellence in what we do here that everyone else demands. And so that you start with that, and then you also start with consistency, and also with an eye, like the kinds of films that have been honored, the performers, these are not people who are unworthy. And so that's where you have to start. You have to start with the merit of the work, and you have to have a standard that is steeped in excellence and inclusion. And that's what AAFCA at the end of the day truly stands for.
Fantastic. So let me
Thank you, Rhonda.
Yeah, I know, because Rhonda pulls no punches. So yes, if she did not mean that, she would not be saying it. That is true. That's why we have you on the show often, Rhonda. But something I wanted to, that made me think about what you just said was the role of African American film festivals in African American films now today. Whether we're talking about the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival, Urban Film Festival, American Black Film Festival. There's so Pan African Film Festival. I mean, we could keep going. Bronze Lens here in Atlanta. What role do film festivals, or are film festivals playing in this kind of rise of Black creatives that appears to be happening in Hollywood right now?
Well, I mean, film festivals are a marketplace. So really a marketplace where creatives come to meet with, they converge, creatives and the business community, distributors, to cut deals. I mean, the purpose of a film festival really is for the goal of most of the people in attendance is to cut a deal, to find a distributor for their product. To what they've become is something different. They've become places of fellowship, places of learning, places where an individual might plant a seed that may lead to, career advancement somewhere down the line. So they play a valuable role. They provide access to people that you probably normally wouldn't get because Hollywood can be very, very, and operates, if you're an outsider, very, very insularly. So being able to meet someone at Bronze Lens or at Urban World or at Martha's Vineyard or at ABFF could potentially become a door opener, that allows you to really get your toe in at least into the game.
Mm-hmm. And you did some of that programming, Gil. I know at Sundance you had a pretty heavy footprint there. Can you talk about some of the programming that you do at film festivals to help Black filmmakers?
Absolutely. We partner at all of the tentpole festivals in the country, being Sundance, Tribeca, South by Southwest, and Toronto. We also have a relationship with long-standing relationship with the Pan African Film Festival, and we've also done some things with Martha's Vineyard, as well as
the Denton Black Film Festival.
Denton Black Film Festival, New Orleans Black Film Festival, Nashville International Black Film Festival, as well as the Bronze Lens. So it's important. It's important because for a lot of people, if they're not really in the industry, and we're trying to really change that, but if they're not really a part of the industry, they don't know what AAFCA is. But when you come into our room, all of the power brokers and stakeholders that you need to meet and need to know, they're there. So we're not really, it's odd because, on the one hand, we have the audience we need to have. But on the other hand, we also, one of our central purposes is to provide a step up, to provide support to, the new and uninitiated. And yet it's been very, very difficult for us to engage with that part of the population. Usually by the time someone engages with AAFCA, they already have a studio deal, and which really we would love to be a part of. We appreciate that, but we'd also love to work with people earlier, in their development as well. But those people, they just don't seem to find us,
But AAFCA is doing that, Gil, because AAFCA has various short film competitions now.
For our film short, but I still feel like we're missing that middle ground between, college and, these creatives who are getting out there and they're finding the financing, they're getting the projects done, and then they don't know where to take it.
because they don't. And that's another thing. I mean, one of the things that AAFCA has done through boot camps and so forth is to educate people. A lot of our filmmakers are really unaware of the role that the tremendous, influential, impactful role that PR and marketing plays. It's like they put energy into everything else, but you have to have a way in order to reach the people. So regardless of how great you think your film is and what your ideas behind it, at the end of the day, it's still a product. And you can't assume because you put all this love in it that we just know, like psychically, that it's out there. You have to promote it. When you look at the success of Justin Simeon and Ava DuVernay, you cannot ignore the fact that they come from PR marketing backgrounds.
Right.
And that is a tremendous thing. And that's part of your creativity as well. And we're seeing other people break through because they have that strong advertising marketing background. So, we're seeing that happen. But, to Gil's point, we do need to do more in order to educate people that it is so much more than the director, the writer, the actors. It's way more than that. You have to know that, you're an entrepreneur when you do a film. You really are.
Right. So let's move on and talk a little bit about diversity in general in Hollywood. There's a McKinsey report that came out a few months ago that talked about the lack of diversity in Hollywood in front of and behind the screen was literally leaving $10 billion on the table. What do you make of that? And do you think that the studios and the agencies and talent agencies and production companies are going to change what they've been doing? Do they want the money?
To me, it's opportunity. So if there is a market, like when you look at historically how people have made money or how they've gotten rich, it's by filling a void. So if they're leaving that much money on the table, that means that there's some money out there for you to get. And these days, there are just too many avenues for you to create your own product. So that's just not an excuse anymore.
Right.
I mean, they certainly want the money. I think the other question to ask is, are they willing to share in the equity?
Mm.
I mean, walking across the average studio campus is like, being the, a Black person in the Ukraine. You just don't see any of us, and and I mean, you see the amount of brothers you see on these campuses is like looking for water in the middle of the Sahara. You do see a few sisters, doing what sisters do, but the number of Black professional men with careers in the industry. I'm not talking about your directors or talent, but people who have the meat and potato careers on that would allow them that they would occupy on a studio campus. Just their presence, our presence, just isn't there. And so that's a problem. That's problematic. I mean, the studios and the networks are certainly, they give a lot of lip service to these diversity pipeline programs and training camps and whatnot. But yeah, like I said earlier, there's still a long way to go in this, and it's really more about us creating opportunities for ourselves. It's what you see, Tyler Perry doing with his campus.
Right.
It's what you see Ava DuVernay doing with her campus, and there are a few others. It's what you see Charles King doing, with Macro. Really, when you look at examples of true success in this industry, it's really all become from individuals who operate kind of independently of Hollywood. They've created their own universe within that larger community. As Ava's fond of saying, they've created their own table.
Mm.
I've created the table and I'm putting it in the room.
Right.
Yeah. And
In
really,
your own room.
when you look at Will Packer, when you look at Spike Lee, John Singleton, Tyler Perry, just about Justin Simeon, all of those individuals, without exception,
bet on you. You have to bet on you.
They bet on themselves, and their success is there's a direct line between their investment in themselves, in their own careers, and the success that they've enjoyed. I mean, Ryan Coogler is probably one of the few Black directors whose success has been achieved within the studio system.
Right.
Well, he started out independently. I mean, his first film was produced by Forrest Whitaker, and Forrest Whitaker, doesn't get enough credit for what he does behind the scenes.
Yeah, but he never went through that period like Will or like Ava, where they were self-funding.
Yes, that's true.
They were doing the what is it called? The GoFundMe,
Right.
Well, I met Ryan in Cannes.
Right. You met him in Cannes. You wouldn't have met Ava or Will in Cannes at the beginning of their careers.
Well, yeah, he had a 6-minute short, and he got into the American Pavilion competition. And I mean, his 6-minute short, to me, it was clear then that he was going big places. Like, I didn't see a Marvel film, but I did see a long career.
Yeah, oh, there's certainly taking nothing away from him. He's a wonderful guy and a wonderful man and enormously talented. And he's just an example he's a rare example.
He's an anomaly. He really is an anomaly of a young, talented Black filmmaker who's embraced by the system.
But he did do the festival thing, and he did win.
For sure. But for lots of people, Gil's point is that there are people who've done that, and they've labored on those circuits for years.
I got Gil's point. My point is that he did take the money from ABFF and invest that into the movie he made about Oscar Grant when he won that HBO award. So
that wouldn't have been enough to complete a film.
No. You're right. But what I'm saying is, and I'm not, I'm still not. I'm in complete agreement with you. But my point is that I don't want to skip over that because that was an important step in his trajectory. And so even though he has navigated the system, and I agree with you, he has been able to do it in a way that most African Americans have not been able to do it. He's outstanding. He's inspiring. We've written a lot about him here at NNPA, Black Press USA. I totally agree with you.
What Gil is saying too is that Ryan came through USC and so forth. When we talk about Tyler Perry, when we talk about Will Packer, when we talk about Ava DuVernay, these are people who didn't even go the film school route.
Went to FAMU, and FAMU has an outstanding program in communications down there. So
taking nothing away from FAMU, when you go to USC, you graduate. Okay. Well, sorry. So when you graduate from USC, you graduate into the industry.
That is true.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He offers hope and possibility because before those avenues weren't as open to us. So now,
even to the graduates, though, and that's the point I want to make. Even to the graduates, Black graduates out of USC and NYU. We're not getting the same returns on their investment as a lot of the white students, and so that's totally. It's just a caveat. I'm not disagreeing with you.
I'm saying that's making us more powerful because now we can come independently and we can come through the pipeline. So I don't see it as a detriment to any side. I'm just saying. I just hope as Gil points out, that we don't lose that independent side as well.
No, I agree. I totally agree. But I think that when the only reason I was raising that caveat is because I think we have a knowledge that some people watching don't have. Right. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to put that in there that, there are other steps that you can take, even if you're outside of the film school space, if you're working independently, if you're starting out in publicity or what have you, there are opportunities that you can take advantage of to get into the industry and to build your own table, as Ava says, to build your own table to get into the room. Because once you get to a certain point, and that's what Will Packer has done, right? When you can have those measurable outcomes, when you can have those measurable outcomes, there's like noisy bracelets. You can have those measurable outcomes. Then you can start making your way into the industry when you can bring that and bring your people and your audience with you. So, yeah.
And then also you can tap people who Hollywood doesn't believe our stars,
Mm-hmm.
but we know our stars. So, it's just we're just starting to operate on all fronts. And so we just have to continue that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, we have about 20 minutes left, but I really want to talk about the AAFCA Awards, and talk about who your winners were, your selection process. Like, how did you determine, what's your voting process? How do you determine your winners? And what it means, to have an award, that's really granted by African American film critics. Let me say this, who are heavily discriminated against in film critic circles and television critic circles. What does it mean to be able to celebrate or to give people their roses now while they're here and in their moment?
I think it depends on the individual. Some, they look, the statuette means as much to them as any other award they might receive.
Oh, you're okay?
Yeah, with others, for the 12th annual show, which we just celebrated a few weeks ago, our best picture was Judas and the Black Messiah. Best actor, our best was Chadwick. Our best wasn't one of my picks, but see, but our best actor was Chadwick Boseman for his role in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Andra Day, who I would love to see walk away with everything this year for the United States versus Billie Holiday. Daniel Kaluuya for his outstanding performance in Judas and the Black Messiah. Dominique Fishback for her work in Judas and the Black Messiah. And then we had some interesting choices in other areas, like our best doc was All In, The Fight for Democracy, the Stacey Abrams voter suppression story that, my God, everybody should be required viewing for everyone.
Right.
And our best animated film was Soul. That's not much of a surprise. It was the first Black Pixar film, in their history, in their studio history. So, I mean, the award.
And best director, Regina King.
One Night in Miami, Regina King for directing. One Night in Miami, best ensemble. The Night of the Kings, our best foreign film, Philippe Lecoq, who's from the Ivory Coast. So, I mean, it was a tremendous evening. We had Mariah Carey obviously received our Innovator Award. George C. Wolfe received the Salute to Excellence Award. Viola Davis received our Icon Award. All In received 2 awards. Their second award was our Stanley Kramer Social Justice Award, which we present with director Kramer's family. So it's always a lot of work. But it's always a good time as well. And the feedback that we received, from the community, from the industry, has been tremendous. And so we're teeing up. We're doing a little break before we tee up for our TV honors, which will be in late August.
Right.
Will is also being modest because AAFCA, actually, we were among the first to put on a virtual awards show because our AAFCA TV honors was done prior to the Emmys.
Right.
Literally, we were probably, one of the first. And that was the one that we did last year at the, right as we were starting to wrap our minds around this pandemic.
Right. So let me ask a question. Andra Day won the Best Actress. Now, in the Oscar nominations, she's going up against a whole bunch of people, including Glenn Close.
Glenn Close is supporting.
It's supporting. She's going up against Carey Mulligan, Frances McDermott.
In my head, Glenn Close should be in Best Actress. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but
she should have an Oscar. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, she's got 3 Golden Globes. She should have an Oscar by now. But she's going. Anyway, that's another story. When we talk about Viola Davis's performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and going up against Andra Day, and sometimes people argue for the body of work in terms of whether you should get the win or not. How did that work out in terms of AAFCA with Andra Day coming out on top in that category?
I mean, it was pretty unanimous. Our votes are actually calculated by independent third party, a CPA firm.
Okay.
But my understanding is that she won overwhelmingly among our 90 plus members. And for me, she gave the best performance of the year
Mm-hmm.
of a female. I was uh, totally captivated by her portrayal of Billie Holiday from start to finish. And to Rhonda's point, who also sweetened the production notes for the movie. um, she was in 90% of it. She was in 90+% of the film. You have
Yes.
a new actor who's in 90% of the film, who's singing and acting, the physicality that was involved in the movie, and she just never let up. And that's certainly not to say anything against the great Viola Davis or the great Frances McDermott, but I just felt that she's fresh blood. And I just felt that she really came to the race to run it, and that
Yes.
she did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
She earned it. And also, when you're a singer, a lot of things that people overlook is when you're singing. But Andra Day doesn't naturally sing in Billie Holiday's register. So even when she's singing, she's acting. And I think a lot of people dismiss that because they assume because she's already a singer. But it's just a tremendous performance by someone who previously, I mean, literally, her previous acting roles were rolling into, she was in Marshall with which Chadwick starred in.
Yes.
And she was a singer. She came and she sang a song and she left. She had never done anything like this before. And it's just tremendous. It's just a tremendous performance.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, and another thing I wanted to ask you about is soundtracks. What movie? And this doesn't have to be the AAFCA award winner. You can talk about it, but what movie soundtrack? Like, I mean, they were so strong this year. Like, how did you? What movie soundtrack spoke best to you in terms of African American films?
I mean, I love the music that was featured throughout Sylvie's Love.
Yes.
Which was a nice mix of a few genres, and just I mean, there were so many things about that film that really did deserve acknowledgement, but unfortunately, it just hasn't yet received the opportunity. We'll see now that the Emmy season is starting and Amazon is putting the film for consideration for an Emmy. So hopefully it'll get a second life.
Okay. Okay. Rhonda?
Oh, I like hip hop. So the Judas and the Judas and the Black Messiah soundtrack was really good.
Okay. Okay. And another question I had is about biopics. There were a lot of biopics this year in general. What do you make of the rise of biopics and even a film like Judas and the Black Messiah, or the U.S. versus Billie Holiday? There were two
Ma Rainey.
Ma Rainey, Black Bottom, or what have you. One Night in Miami, where it wasn't a biopic, but it had these historical figures, real life figures in the movie. What do you make of this interest in these particular stories at this particular moment in time?
I don't know if it's a coincidence or if those projects were just happened to be in the pipeline, and came out when they did. I happen to be a big fan of biographies and biopics as well. So I'm always curious about, individuals who lived interesting lives, and to see their lives in a movie, or how, the dramatization of their life, I find that to be very appealing. Rhonda, what are your thoughts?
Also, I mean, I think that we're not seeing straight biopics. What we are kind of moving into the territory of is taking a specific period of your life and presenting it, because that's definitely what United States versus Billie Holiday attempts to do, and also what Judas and the Black Messiah. I mean, it's not Fred Hampton's complete story. It's, this specific interaction with an informant. And so I think that we are kind of zoning in on different elements of a person's life, whereas traditionally we've had, in the Black side of things, we've had an attempt to tell the person's entire story from birth to death, and now we're picking out moments. So hopefully creatively that will continue. I mean, I know that Miles Ahead wasn't really biopic, and there are other elements with kind of corrupting the story by centering people other than Miles, but that whole energy of trying to narrow down a specific moment and capture that, I don't think that we've seen that in the past.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Cradle to the Grave is hard. That's a lot of information to create and to process.
Right.
So I'm fairly certain that the reason why they focus on these windows are because they try to, find the snapshots that really made the person who they're known to be. What are they known for? They're known for this particular set of activities. Are from the business standpoint, what's going to drive the most interest, the most audience, the most butts and seats, the most views, the most streams, because you do have to always remember that it is a business. And I think their creatives are taking the bet that by at least introducing these characters into the lives of the audience, that they will hopefully go out and do further research about the totality of these people's lives. And
right. Okay. And what role do you think that OTT, over the top, Amazon, Netflix, has played in the quality of films that we're getting, African American films about African Americans, or featuring African American cast, if any?
I mean, Rhonda, you want to go, or you want me to go?
Oh, it's been tremendous.
Yeah, it's been absolutely tremendous.
It's been tremendous. It's opened up different opportunities. Not only that, you get to see, like, a Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. We're talking about it in the context of this country, but that's a film that played to over 150 plus countries. And so what those outlets...
And it would have never been greenlit by a traditional studio to be released in theaters.
Exactly. And then, and because we've been at home because of the pandemic, we're seeing some films that may not have made it, like as tremendous as Ma Rainey is. And I wanted to say earlier that Ma Rainey was kind of a little betrayed because it's not really a biopic, but she's used, that experience is used as a metaphor for kind of measuring, where we stood as people at that period of time. But that's definitely a film that would have never gotten the kind of play it's gotten if it had to just go straight up in theaters.
No, it would have never seen the light of day.
Why? Tell the viewers why, Gil. Why are you so adamant about that?
I mean, it's a numbers game, right? It's what's going to be my ROI is what the studio is looking at, what the distributor is looking at. And historically, projects like Ma Rainey have underperformed, even when you're dealing with white artists that may be somewhat obscure to pop culture. So they wouldn't have put forth that type of investment with the uncertainty that knowing that they would get a return.
More people have TVs than you have a theater. There are lots of cities in the United States that don't even have theaters. So and especially for an art house type of film, like how many places in Omaha is a Ma Rainey Black Bottom going to play in? So it's simply a numbers game, and more people have TVs. More people have laptops. More people have phones.
And like you've seen recently with Lifetime, how they've made a considerable investment in these biopic projects, from the Clark sisters to Salt and Pepper to Wendy Williams to Mahalia. So I mean, TV is just as viable as film, in my opinion. And to Rhonda's point, it also allows you to reach a much a bigger audience than you would ever reach in a theater.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about you all, both of you, is you always talk about the money, because it really is an industry. And as a professor, it's hard to get even students, because, you know, they come to film and TV for the creative aspects of it, right?
All your students should buy it, but Glenn Guthrie, ain't nothing going on. That is what it's all about.
Yeah, but trying to get them over to that, right? You know, is can be difficult. It's like, you know, but why? But why? It's like, okay, well, here's the formula, right? Here's the economics behind it. Here are the movies that have made it. This is how much they cost. This is how much they invested. This is what the return on. This is how many theaters they played in. You know, all of those metrics that are really important, because it is. I think Gil said it at the beginning. It is a product. Movies, and Rhonda said it too. Movies are a product, right? They have to move in a marketplace. And so while we want to think about these as, you know, simply creative endeavors, they definitely have to make that money back, because they do cost a lot to create and to produce. Before we go, because we have about 5 minutes, I want to hear from you all. You know, what's next from AAFCA? In terms of what do you have stewing, what do you got working, and then also what do you think is what's next for Black cinema?
Quickly, with AAFCA, we are taking a bit of a break right now. We will be launching the third leg of our social justice film short competition during the month of May. We'll be opening up for entries from the Asian Pacific community. Previously, in February, we accepted entries for Black History Month, and during March for Women's History Month, and then we'll end it in June with entries from the LGBTQ community before handing off our grand prize winner in July at our annual Synergy event, which this year will be virtually, unfortunately, but as you know, is normally held here in Atlanta. You know, getting ready for Emmy season, getting ready, which means our AAFCA TV honors, getting ready for Black Music Month. We have a collaboration with the Producers Guild of America, as well as the Grammys. And, you know, we'll have programming around Pride. And we'll also be in our third season of our summer screening series, where we take a look at important anniversary titles. And so this year we'll be looking at Pariah, Shaft, and Rhonda, what was the third one?
Baby Boy.
And Baby Boy. And those will include talkbacks with like Tyrese and for Baby Boy, and people who are involved in the other two films, Richard Roundtree, you know, Shaft, and probably D for Pariah. So it's a busy summer ahead. We're hoping that that sometime during the summer we're going to all be able to come out of our cocoons and once again interact more intimately, you know, as we have like we did pre-COVID. But you know, that's people have to wear their masks.
Yeah.
You know?
He says that we're taking a break. We still do our AAFCA virtual roundtables, so you can check us out at YouTube. We also are on, for those people who have Xfinity, there's the AAFCA channel on the Xfinity Black Experience channel. So, I mean, AAFCA, I mean, for us, it's a break, but it's not really a break. There's always content.
Well, yeah, I always say that Black people don't really ever take breaks. When we break, we're actually doing something else before we're doing that big thing. So
exactly.
Yeah,
it's just not 5 jobs. We got one right now.
Right. Well, I would like to thank you both for coming on to the show. I appreciate you both. I consider you both friends. Also, I guess full disclosure, member of AAFCA as well. But thank you so much for sharing about AAFCA. Where can people find out more information about your organization?
Go to our website, aafca.com. Also on Instagram at AAFCA, and on Twitter at the AAFCA, and of course on Facebook at African American Film Critics Association. Thank you so much, Nsenga. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. So everybody, like Gil said, wear your mask, wash your hands, get vaccinated, stay Black, and stay in the house. We cannot afford any more losses. And we will see you at the end of the summer. All right. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.